Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 3 of the Pandemonium playthrough. We're Nikki again. Glory be. And we're about to play the Fungus Grotto, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the first level with one of those animal transformations.
Is it right next to Mushroom Hill?
Maybe. The mushrooms certainly serve a similar function. They're bouncy. Ooh!
Jesus Christ, one hit KO?
No, I only have one hit point left.
Oh, the game doesn't refresh your health between stages.
Yeah,
Oh, yes, danger because of the fungus bombs. Wow, thanks for letting us know, game.
At some point in the middle of this playthrough, I got burnt out because I spent so long going after, like, exactly one of the health upgrades that required some tricky platforming to get to around the midpoint of the game. And I ended that part, that recording, with exactly one hit point remaining. And the beginning of the first level I had to play after that was deadly. So I would start recording, and then, you know, get 3 seconds into the level and die. So I'd be like, God damn it. I didn't want to start off a part like that. So I just started over the recording and reloaded my save state. And it would happen again. And that would keep happening just 5 times in a row before I made any headway into the level.
You should do what I do and just get hit and then cut out the death. And so hope people don't notice that your lives tick down by 1 between shots.
Well, I don't want to misrepresent the difficulty.
Oh, well, you see, when I'm playing a game, everybody knows I'm bad anyway. So I just view it as not wasting, as just saving people the time of me being I was going to say bad person, but you have to deal with me being a bad person every time you watch a BrainScratch comms part, so sucks to be you.
Not every part. There was a time period where you weren't part of the group.
Wow, Ryan, that's very, very nice of you.
Was that a compliment, or?
No. Oh, we're a frog.
Yeah, and the frog just means you can jump higher. I don't think you retain character special abilities in animal form, so I don't think you get the double jump.
That poor frog, though, it's seen some stuff.
Oh.
It doesn't even have a death animation, you just die.
You fade to black.
It's a frog.
I'm a frog.
Crazy frog. Okay, good.
I'm not even sure what purpose these animal transformations serve, besides being an interesting bullet point on the back of the box.
It's probably just...
They probably exist to be a bullet point on the back of the box.
They're also probably trying to, you know, do what Yoshi's Island did, because it had those transformations, and people liked them. Although, the transformation stages in most of the Yoshi games, I'm actually not usually a big fan of. Like, I hate the helicopter, because it's really... the momentum on it's ridiculous. But, you know, that's just me. That's just my opinion.
Oh, damn it. Oh, I can't get to that heart.
Well, you can go over that guy.
Whew, okay. I was just really nervous.
At least this game has drop shadows.
Yeah. I was really nervous, though, because I had only 1 heart left. And I had to get past an enemy and then another enemy to get health and get myself back in the safe zone again.
You see, I feel like you shouldn't be able to jump on that snail because it's spiky. But,
Oof! Well, the shell doesn't hurt you, but it does bounce you off and prevent it from dying.
Ah, okay.
I like how the mushroom disappears after a certain distance, just pops out of existence.
Yeah, that's a PS1 kind of thing where stuff just disappears. I mean,
they didn't even bother putting in an animation of it disappearing. It just pops out.
Yeah, that was pop-in was a big thing that a lot of people complained about in games from the time, because it was something I think that people just weren't used to at that point, so it was really, really distracting. Like, I think for people who grew up with games of this time period, maybe pop-in doesn't bother them as much. And in kind of the similar way, when I go back to games like from the SNES era or the NES era, like sprite flickering really, really annoys me. But I feel like for a lot of people who played a lot of NES games at the time, they're like, okay, yeah, sprite flickering, that's just kind of a part of the experience. And it's, I don't know, it's probably a similar sort of thing for some people with pop-in as well. I mean, pop-in, I think, is a little bit more...
It's a little more obvious.
Oh, no.
It's a little bit more obvious depending on the game. But
This is the part I mentioned earlier where you need to get down a whole sliding section without damaging yourself and without damaging the obstacles. Because if you hit them, they break too. So you have to jump very precisely through hoops and duck under these spikes here.
you know, this actually reminds me of the first Rayman game with the slidey section in the band level, which was always my favorite part of that game when I was playing it growing up.
Oof!
Although,
Why aren't you allowed to touch anything?
Because if you don't get through this section without damaging anything or without taking any hits, which, well, is both the same thing really, the heart container won't appear at the end.
is there anything that lets you know that that's how it works?
No.
Well, that's a guide, dang it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, all the heart containers are really guide
Making
dang
a save state.
Yeah, this was me save stating in the middle of the section so that I wouldn't have to do the whole thing over again.
This
but
section's long, too.
It is quite long, yes. I mean,
When she's ducking, she's sliding on her knees. That has to hurt.
unlike a lot of sliding sections in these kind of games, you can stop yourself. And yeah, that was me, like, not even bothering to try and jump to get the tokens.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't bother at that point.
Getting 100% in this must be hell, then.
It is.
You would have to get every single coin on top of not hitting anything.
You also get an extra life at the end.
Cool.
So, there we go. Heart container. Now we've got 4 out of a possible 7. I've heard that there's a possible 8 in the game, but I can't find any information on that last one, so I don't know where people keep getting that number.
How many stages are there?
19, 15, something like that. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So it's not like it's just one per stage or anything.
It's not
to
like
that
one per
effect.
stage, no. It's just, the levels that they appear in are fairly irregular as well. Sometimes they're pretty close together, and sometimes they're quite a few stages apart. So, yeah. You have to do some really, really hardcore exploring if you want to find all this stuff without a guide. Oh, damn it! That catapulted me into a flock of monster-bouncing mushrooms. Level designers, why? Why do you play this game of emotions with me?
Because you didn't get all of the coins and not hit any of the rocks and not get damaged during that entire sliding section. How dare you do this?
Anyway, as you can tell, you're taking a lot of hits in this game, so the heart containers are very, very valuable.
It definitely looks like it for sure.
It's not like health restoration is rare, but you don't want to play the game stuck at 2 hit points either, because, well, you're probably going to take more than 2 hit points before that next health regeneration. Damn it! More bouncy mushrooms.
So one thing I also really like about this, from what I can tell, is, for one, the backgrounds are very pretty, but they do cool things with perspective regarding the backgrounds as well. Like, when you are higher up, the way that the backgrounds kind of angled along with the camera made it look like they were actually looking below, as opposed to it just being a 2D backdrop.
Yeah, they were very clever about how they drew their backgrounds and how they scrolled at certain points in the level. I pointed out, like, when we were in the first level, you could see a 2D drawing of the 3D level area that you would be playing later on, because that was where the perspective shifted to at that point in the level. They don't do that kind of thing often in this game, but it's cool that they do.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of it is like a tech thing, like them actually angling the backgrounds using, like, being programmed to do that, and how much is it like a optical illusion perspective trick, like just because they angled the picture down at you. Like here, you can kind of see it.
Now she's radioactive.
Oh boy, she's gonna get all the superpowers.
Well, yeah, you can see the acid pools down there, and when the background angles down, it focuses in more on that. It's clever perspective stuff for sure, but The reason they're doing that is interesting in the context of the time. You see a lot of remarks when it comes to early 3D games about how 2D gamers used to always like fantasize about going into the backgrounds of their 2D games and exploring what was back there, and how 3D games would start to let them live that fantasy. You know, so I feel like that's where some of the perspective stuff that they pull with these 2D backgrounds comes from. That kind of mindset.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
although in many ways 3D games are more limiting about that because so many of them around this time just had invisible walls. And it was
I have
nope.
I have like an invincibility upgrade that basically turns you into metal Nikki or metal Fargus. Oh, damn it! And then I slid right into an acid pool and ruined it all.
Which makes sense because Assel. The hell
Assel.
am I? The hell am I?
Assel.
Acid
Assel.
corrodes metal. There we go.
No. When I had the acid, I slid right across the metal. I slid into acid after.
When you had the acid, it makes sense that this game was developed when you had the acid power up.
Because the sliding sections get to be like full-on Sonic the Hedgehog speed, only way less controllable. So you have to watch out when you're in those areas.
Yeah, some parts do move pretty quickly from what I can tell. Which is part of what reminds me of the first Rayman game, because there are points in that game where you go blisteringly fast and you can't control anything that you're doing at all. Man, also, some of the cryptic power-ups remind me of the first Rayman as well, because trying to find everything in that game is a pain in the ass.
And it makes you do it anyway.
It's time for a boss fight. These are not good.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the 2D platformer has iffy boss fights.
I'm going to make this look kind of easy, but I had to reload my save state multiple times for this boss.
This is just straight up a Klonoa boss.
It basically is. You have to find the catapults that currently have flaming ammo in them and jump through them to activate them. Watch out for all the projectiles that they're launching. Oof.
Well, the thing is, if this mushroom guy, we're breaking off parts of his head where all the spores are. So really, we're just helping him reproduce. So we're not really hurting him at all.
It's a little like the bosses in Gex Enter the Gecko, though. Like, they have difficult aspects to them, but once you know what you're doing, they take like 20 seconds. So yeah. I don't like bosses that end that quickly, though, because they feel like non-events when they do.
Yeah, I get that. It's weird trying to balance it so that it's fun and doesn't go on for an hour, but also that it doesn't end after, like, 3 seconds. Because that was a 30-second boss fight, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Not even making jokes there. I'm pretty sure it took less than a minute. So it does feel a little anticlimactic when it's that short.
I feel like when it comes to platformer bosses feeling like events within the gameplay, Sonic the Hedgehog has done it better than almost any other 2D platformer. More in the sense that, well, they're not necessarily all that hard, but unless you're deliberately scumming your invincibility frames like a noob, or know exactly what you're doing, the boss fights tend to last just long enough to feel significant, and some of them are deliberately designed to be like big narrative events, like the one in Lava Reef Zone Act 2. But a lot of other platformers, 2D and 3D, didn't do so well.
I would say in terms of length, Sonic usually does pretty well. I feel like in terms of like the bosses being fun and good, it's more hit and miss, but
yeah, I would say
certainly it's got, I think, the length. Like, they're usually about a minute or two long, which is a decent percentage of the stage. So I feel like they've definitely got that
Oof, damn it.
pretty well.
I'm not giving up on that token.
All for 25 coins. You could have just gotten elsewhere.
Well, the tokens do have different values based on their colors. Hang on. Boop, boop, and I'm on the upper path. Power up. And now I have the freeze power up, which is okay, but like it's kind of a case where I don't feel the ability to freeze enemies really adds anything to the game. I mean, you can freeze the enemy and still use them as a jumping platform, but that's like the only advantage it has over the regular projectile.
I think maybe it might be designed to make it so that you can plan your route of attack a little bit more cautiously. Because does the enemy stay frozen for forever? Or does it like wear off after a couple seconds?
I think it wears off.
Yeah, well, like for example, in some games where you can like stop the enemy like this before you jump on them, it allows you to kind of be like...
The hedgehog enemies do a spin dash at you. They knew what they were doing.
There's a lot of platformers that have Sonic just as an enemy. Like there's this one. There's
They were all
Country. I think
they were all just kind of jealous.
Crash, I think, had one too.
Crash had a porcupine in the ice levels that would get spiky at you and run a little faster. Which
Close enough.
Which was probably a reference. You're right about that, but
Yeah.
I lost my power up, so I'm backtracking to go get a power up I just passed. Hang on.
Oh, I do that. I do that all the time. It's just like, wait up. This is why, depending on the game, I won't pick up a lot of stuff because, like, I might need that later. So
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
didn't.
leave that.
I didn't pick it up because I had no reason to, because I had the freezing power up, and that is a slightly better thing than just the basic magic missile power up. But you know.
So
Ugh.
how often do you get cutscenes and stuff like that in this game? Because we haven't seen one.
Just beginning and ending. It's
Just
very
beginning and ending?
it's
Oh,
very
okay.
much a classic style game in that way. Pandemonium
Alright.
2 is also the same, which is why I'd say, like, as much as I dislike the clearly inspired by Lara Croft's Edge Factor redesign, you know, Pandemonium 2 is still like very much worth playing simply because it's a better game. So yeah. I mean, I can harp on all I like about the tone of the game changing and me preferring the spunky teenage version of Nikki over the sexy vixen version of Nikki, but, you know, that really only affects, like, a collective minute of the game experience. So...
To be fair, though, I definitely get why it can bother you, and there are definitely cases I can think of where one entry in a game might be better in a lot of different ways, but small things about the first one or, you know, the later one, or whatever it is. You know, some small things about the other entry just make me like it an awful lot more, even if it is weaker, even objectively, in many other ways.
Yeah, well, this isn't one of those cases. This is just a quibble that I have with it. And, you know, I understand why it happened, because that was just where video game marketing was at the time. You know, Lara Croft had entered the scene, and she was a major media sensation.
Triangle boobs, cell games.
The
Man.
funny thing about Lara Croft, though, is that her being marketed as a sex icon was very much a difference in creative vision between marketing and the guy who actually created her. And you can sort of see this in her in-game model. She was designed to look athletic, and they really ignored that in marketing. She was supposed to be like more deliberately a strong female character. Like,
To be a bit
Samus
fair
Aran.
for the marketers at the time, looking at Lara Croft's first model, you don't really get that feel.
Also,
You
to be-
do actually from the in-game model. It's the FMV model that doesn't fit with that idea, and I'm not sure at what point in the development that FMV model was designed, because those parts of the game at the time were generally handled by different people.
Well, normally at the time, your FMV cutscenes were handled by an actual quote-unquote film studio that specialized in like CG animation.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
funny though, because like in Tomb Raider's case, the FMVs were inconsistent even when the in-game model was all sexed up to fall in line with the marketing in Tomb Raider Chronicles and Tomb Raider 4, where her FMV model was pretty much the same FMV model she was using since the first game, complete with like a zero cleavage tank top, whereas her in-game model was suddenly showing all this cleavage and, you know, changed her proportions to not have the abs or to have smaller shoulders and all. It was very strange. And
People
then
in the 90s were really, really horny because I don't think anybody today would consider
it's not
the 90s
really
Lara Croft that attractive.
it's not really about horniness exactly. It's more about the idea of sex appeal on its own merits was considered more adult, and they were really trying to push this idea of games as a serious medium, which, you know, you would think nowadays retroactively that you wouldn't want to act like a horny teenager to make yourself look more serious and adult, but that was
the
where
90s.
that was where gaming was at. They were having trouble
Previously, everything was super cartoony and obviously for kids.
Yeah, so the sex appeal was kind of a rebellion against that idea, in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh my god, Tifa has huge boobs and wears a miniskirt.
it's easy to look back at stuff and not like see the point that they were going for, but another thing about Lara Croft's proportions, though, is that one of the things about old PS1 graphics is that without like exaggerated aspects in places, it was really hard to make visual aspects obvious. Like,
Metal Gear Solid, anyone?
they wanted Lara Croft to be obviously a woman, as opposed to, say, Samus Aran, who was like, surprise, at the end of the game, I'm a woman. So they kind of like made her feminine attributes obvious. And that, you know, that makes sense from a perspective of this is how 3D models worked at the time. So, in any case, that is the end of part 3. I will see you all next part, in part 4. I forget what we did in part 4. I'd make a clever reference to whatever we do in part 4, but it's been like months since I recorded this, so sorry.